almost at the 3-year anniversary of that incredible moment, it really was our time to shine as Rebel News citizen journalists and crowdfunding lawyers. Really, a lifetime highlight for me. But never forget how the mainstream media tried to smear the truckers as evil and racist and sexist and whatever else they said, even though in Canada, many truckers are minorities, including South Asian and Indigenous. Lots of Quebecois truckers, too. I really enjoyed how people of all backgrounds came together in Ottawa. I loved it. It was a very exciting feeling. Felt very patriotic there. If you were there, you know. And if you couldn't be there, including because of Trudeau's no-fly list for unjabbed people, hopefully our coverage gave you a feeling of the spirit on the ground, which is why the mainstream media tried to call everyone Nazis. Now, I don't think anyone believed it. But boy, the CBC and CTV and the Canadian press and the rest of them, they sure bet big on that. There was one swastika allegedly seen for less than 1 minute by a liberal-aligned photographer who just happened to be in the right place at the right time to see it for that one moment at the Chateau Laurier, of all places. That's the most expensive hotel in Ottawa. Just happened to have been commandeered by the RCMP for the trucker convoy. So yeah, pretty obviously a plant, but the media had their hook for the lie. So there was a total freakout about a Nazi flag that no one saw other than a partisan photographer who saw it for the perfect moment. Yeah, nothing suspicious there. And of course, the smear didn't work, but the fact that so many journalists ran with it tells you a lot about them. So that was in 2022. And in October of 2023, a terrible thing happened, the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, when today's Nazis, members of the Hamas terrorist group, and hundreds of civilians from Gaza stormed into Israel, raped, murdered, tortured, kidnapped. More than 1,000 Jews were dead, hundreds kidnapped, including many young people who were at an outdoor dance concert. And that set off a tidal wave of global anti-Semitism, fomented by Iran, by the way, and other propagandists. And suddenly Nazi flags were everywhere. Nazi swastikas, Nazi salutes. Not just that, but people dressed up as modern versions of Nazis, anti-Semitic terrorists, masks, keffiyehs, reenactments of terrorist moments, people dressed as if they had bombs on them. I was actually arrested for trying to document one of these reenactments myself, you might recall. So the Canadian media went from pretending to care about a fake Nazi swastika to pretty much totally ignoring or even defending actual Nazi Hamas supporters in plain sight. At university encampments, at weekly protests, in institutions, even in the government itself. Nobody cares. Not even many official Jews, by the way, like this guy, the Jewish Solicitor General of the Government of Ontario, who refuses to have police lay charges against illegal acts.
How come there were no charges under Section 176.2 of the Criminal Code besetting a house of worship when all those protesters were outside the Bayit Synagogue in Thornhill?
Well, it's a question that you're going to have to ask the York Regional Police or the Attorney General. I'm here because I'm not going to see my community intimidated. I speak out all the time in support of our Jewish community. I'm not afraid to wear my kippah. I'm not afraid to go to synagogue every Sabbath, every Shabbat, and I'm going to do everything that I can to stand up for our inherent right to live safely in our own homes and communities, and I'm not going to stop.
Everything short of prosecuting them, though, right? I mean, the U of T remains encamped with an illegal encampment. You're very good on Twitter, but have you actually done any prosecutions?
Well, again, this is something that you have to speak to the Attorney General.
He's your colleague. You're in the government. Why should you're on the inside?
No, what I can tell you is I'm working every day to
You're tweeting every day
that our legislation, that our regulations are adhered to. I'm standing up with my community. I've been 34 weeks, almost every single week, to the rally at Bathurst and Shepherd in support of remembering the hostages who have been held against their will in captivity in Gaza, and it's not acceptable. Well, and that's exactly why.
It obviously is acceptable since you're not prosecuting it. You have condoned it. You've created a new normal where people can engage in low-level, permanent anti-Semitic crimes, assault, threats, mischief, because you guys don't prosecute. But there you are on Twitter, though, so congrats for that.
I saw that Pierre Poilievre the other day said that When he's prime minister, he will deport any foreign nationals convicted of hate crimes or other crimes while supporting Hamas.
We see on our own streets anti-Semitism, guided by obscene, woke ideologies that have led to an explosion in hate crimes. Hate crimes were up over 100% in Canada before October 7th. Now they're up 251%, with Jews being the principal victims of those crimes. We must not just condemn these things, we must take action against them. We must deport from our country any temporary resident that is here on a permit or a visa that is carrying out violence or hate crimes on our soil.
I would hope so. It's sort of depressing, though, that basic idea is considered something to celebrate. But even that, you can't deport someone convicted of a crime if no one has even been charged with a crime. Every week in Canada, and I know from firsthand experience in my own neighborhood, from my observations from David Menzies' reports, I know that every single week there are hate crimes and real crimes too, uttering death threats, trespass, harassment, stalking, nuisance, and no one is charged. Police abide death threats even. They simply never arrest anyone, and if they do, they release them almost immediately, and if they're charged, the charges are dropped. Pierre Poilievre's policy would not actually have seen a single person deported. I don't think a single person has been convicted because so few are prosecuted and even so few are charged, so few are arrested. But look at this. The sleeping policemen have awakened. It's like they are transported back in time to the trucker convoy. Did you see this story out of Edmonton? And I've seen these same kinds of people around the country. Deport them all. RCMP investigating racially motivated signs in St. Albert. That's in Alberta. Police northwest of Edmonton say they are investigating after 3 men were seen holding up what authorities are calling racially motivated signs by the side of the road Saturday. Photos posted online by the mayor of St. Albert show the men dressed in black and their faces covered, holding up signs that read "White Lives Matter" and "Deport them all." Alberta RCMP told City News over the weekend officers were called to the St. Albert Centre along St. Albert Trail at 11:45 a.m. Saturday. Mounties say no arrests were made, and the individuals left the area after they were cautioned by police about creating a disturbance for drivers on the road. Could you imagine police giving that caution but not doing that at the weekly Hamas rallies on the streets of Toronto? Now, St. Albert RCMP say they are investigating the incident with the help from Alberta RCMP Hate Crimes Coordinator. Quote, "The Alberta RCMP firmly believes that everyone should feel safe and be treated with equality and respect," Mounties said in a news release Monday, "except for Jews or others who don't like Hamas terrorists, I should add." Quote, "We are committed to ensuring everyone we serve can live in communities free from discrimination and bias, and we take any action that threatens the safety and security of others extremely seriously." Please stop lying. You actually don't. Now, I don't believe in people covering their faces unless you're a welder or unless it's minus 30 degrees outside. But that's obviously not an opinion shared by police who abide Hamas protesters covering their faces and making anti-Semitic threats. But what did these men say? Deport them all. That's a political opinion. That's a hate crime now? They probably meant the White Lives Matter part. Well, I think white lives do matter. I think black lives matter too. I think all lives matter. We know that the police believe black lives matter because they all took a knee to show support for that U.S.-based fundraising corporation. I don't know if you follow the money, but Black Lives Matter is a corporation revealed to be a fundraising scam. They just bought $1 million homes for their founders. But of course, Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, Asian Lives Matter, Jewish Lives Matter, everyone's lives matter. Like I say, where's the crime, though? I mean, compare that to the insane hatred and actual crimes that we see the Hamas protesters do every week: trespass, threats, assault, any of the Hamas university encampments. I'm not even talking about the full-on riots like the one in Montreal a few months ago when Justin Trudeau was at the Taylor Swift concert. Hey, did you see this? Ruby Dalla, she was an MP in the Liberals in the past. She's throwing her hat in the ring. You don't have to be white to say deport them all. Ruby Dalla is a Sikh. She's a contender for the Liberal Party leadership, and she says she will deport every illegal. As you may know, there are 4.9 million temporary residents in Canada who are legally here now, but they have to leave at the end of the year. They got 11 months to get out. They will become illegal after December 31st. That's a lot of deporting, and Ruby says she's up for it. Will police investigate her? Here's a tweet that caught my eye by Tristan Hopper of the National Post. He said, it was a link to the story I read to you about the St. Albert protest. He said, the RCMP would walk through 500 miles of Kill the Jews rallies just to arrest one guy holding up a deport them all sign. Two-tier policing, two-tier justice. You know, they've been pursuing Tamara Leach for 3 years with no proof of anything illegal. Not a single witness. I was in court. We had reporters there every single day. Not a single witness in her trial actually observed her doing anything wrong. She just made uplifting Facebook posts, really, and yet they jailed her for 49 days before the trial even happened. Not a day in jail for any Hamas protesters that I know about, but boy, if they ever find those deport them all lads, expect hell to pay. Oh, by the way, I'm happy to say, without wearing a mask, deport them all.